Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of
Episode.
God damn it. All right.
Welcome to the episode.
Welcome to the Opadome.
Welcome to Turn Extension, a supplemental podcast for the Advanced Maneuvers YouTube channel.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Turn Extension. My name is Tony, or Polar Bear Cub on the forums.
Hey everybody, it's Kevin.
Hey everybody, it's Devin, Cutthroat Cure on the forums.
So last week we took another week off, and then we decided for this week let's talk about SR17. And we kind of fell on this topic because, about 2 weeks ago, a couple of the guys actually drove ridiculous far to come up to my house, and we played a couple of SR17 games. So now we kind of want to talk about it because it's kind of an important thing.
Not to mention I have a steamroller that I will be playing tomorrow our time, but it will be already have happened by the time this comes out. So they're going to try and educate me on what I can expect with this steamroller tomorrow.
Well, also to the extent pulling the curtain back a little bit, for those who don't know, in order to get some of these games recorded for Advanced Maneuvers, the battle reports that we do, we run little 8-man AM scrambles that are going to be using the SR17 packet. So a bunch of us are going to be going into SR17 scrambles here soon, just for battle reports.
Yeah, and that's what, there's 8 of us that are doing it, and it's what, there's 4 games that we're recording each month for that?
Correct. So 4 weeks in a month, 4 games getting reported. So basically what we do is, normally a scramble's 8 people and you play it during like a con or something like that when you only have a limited number. Advanced Maneuvers uses scrambles to record games because it becomes a scenario where we can get an entire month's recording in one round of a scramble, reset the numbers, figure out who's first, second, and third in the scramble, and then we've got month number 2 and then month number 3.
Yeah, so it's a good way for us to kind of get a lot of content out, as well as, kind of just mix things up between us, just so we're kind of getting the variety. Now, unfortunately, with this scramble, I'm not a part of it. I'm not 100% sure if I was going to be able to get out enough to play this month because my job is changing yet again for the 3rd time, I think, this year. But that being said, I did record 2 games 2 weeks ago, so I'm very excited about that.
And we're going to make you record more. You're not getting away with just 2.
Oh, yeah, no. I definitely plan on recording more, especially for me personally. I just saw the Siege 2 rules a day ago now, and I think I've already made 4 or 5 lists, so I plan on switching really between Convergence and Siege 2. Those are really the 2 factions I plan on playing is Convergence and Siege 2. So, I'm trying to find the one-pager right now because I missed it, but does someone want to talk about that one-pager before we go into what SR 2017?
Yes. So basically, the ever-amazing Zosha Simpson took the contents out of the SR packet and basically put it into a single pager so that you could print it out and have it available to you when you're playing, so that way you can just quickly reference like what are the objectives, what are the scenarios, where are the what's the kill box dimensions and stuff like that. Obviously, if it goes on a page, the images aren't super big, but they're there and they're available. And, just from the community to her, thank you for putting in that extra time.
I'll be completely honest with you. Even though it all fits on one page, this is fantastic. Like, the numbers are super, from a TO perspective, the numbers are super clear. It's actually easier for me to use this and look at and see what the dimensions on using this one sheet paper than it is to actually look at the steamroller packet. It's the steamroller packet, like it's so dark and everything, so you can barely see the numbers because they want you to print in color, but there's no way that I'm going to print 180 sheets in color. So when you print them out in black, you can barely read the numbers. So at least when she did these, it just looks fantastic.
Yeah, so with that being said, do we kind of want to talk a little bit about the Steamroller 2017?
Well, and specific to what, like how you score, what the scenarios are, our thoughts on it. What are you looking for?
You know what? I would say a little bit of everything. Let's talk about each of the different scenarios, kind of what we see. If it's a good scenario, bad scenario, how alive it is. Which I would say for each one, it's very alive. If there's any real differences between the scenarios, or if we're kind of just seeing the same thing over and over again.
Well, so one of the things I want to touch on is when the SR17 packet was kind of in CID and all that stuff in its early renditions, I remember having a very strong opinion that I didn't like it. Like I thought the scoring, there was too many scoring potentials. The fact of, you at the time you needed 6 in order to score on a scenario win, that made me feel it was very much a scenario of it's always, it's assassination 100% of the times. And I will publicly eat crow here and say I was 100% wrong. The ability to win on scenario was more than capable in the SR17 packet, and Privateer Press legitimately did a good job with it. One of the other things that I've gotten from my playing the SR17 scenarios that I've come to develop an opinion on is that the way you approach each scenario is completely different from the other. Like, you can't play spread the net the same way you play Recon 2 or something like that, because of how the scoring works, where you need certain things to score with, and the way that they positioned it. So as an example, one of the ones that you mentioned earlier, that you think that the scenarios are all live, I would actually say there is one that I don't believe is really that live.
Yeah.
Technically too, Pit kind of feels like it's not necessarily that live, but the one that really just, every time I see it, I'm like, oh, good, is the barbell one called Breakdown. Where you have 2 circular zones and a square zone.
Yeah, I would say that one is not alive. What that one does, I feel, instead, is it makes you pay attention to the rounds significantly more. Because the fact that it's not as live a scenario, so scoring is important, but I feel like that scenario, you're going to catch up to that round 7 timer a lot faster. And you have to pay attention to that to see if that you're going to end the turn with, what those additional win victories could possibly be.
To me, it's in a very attrition-y, I think I just made a word, an attrition-based scenario, because when you look at the scenario, so basically you have 2 circular zones that are 24 inches up from a table edge, and then the rectangular zone that sits in the center. There are no close to deployment scoring scenarios. There are no close to deployment zones. There are no close to your deployment flags or objectives for you to blow up. It's literally just 3 zones, and they're all sitting on that divide line, where you're kind of sit in a scenario of, I have to advance forward. I have to deal with my opponent's army and all the other things that happen with match pairs, list pairs, and stuff like that. But then it becomes a situation of, all right, well, all of the circles are on the outside. So in order for me to score, I've got to get units that are kind of playing somewhat outside. But then I've got a rectangle in the center, which I need jacks in order to deal with, but in that rectangle there's going to be line of sight blocking if you're following the terrain packets in SR17. So even in that scenario, it's really easy to contest the center scenarios and the circle scenarios and not need to spread out, not need to make really any kind of choice. It really is a scenario of, we're going to go to the center and we're going to grind it out and see who comes out on top after 7.
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree with that. It really is kind of just, and that's one of the things I also really like about SR17, which you brought up. It's if you're following the terrain rules, holy crap, that really changes the game significantly. I really feel like this was the final piece for Mark III to really set it off. The fact that there's so much terrain there now is a huge thing, which I think it's a big turnoff to a lot of shooting lists. Looking at my Signar stuff, I'm like, okay, like Keen 3 I don't think is going to be as viable as it was. Nemo 3, probably not as much. What were you about to say, Devin?
Is there only 3 objectives now? I did not notice that.
And you don't even choose the objectives when you're writing your list. You choose the objective. So objectives, the big thing with the objectives, and this is actually one of the things that I'm a little frustrated with, not necessarily frustrated so much as I was surprised that they went this direction, is you create your list, you create your pairings, you come to the table, you hand sheets over, your opponent picks the list that they're going to do, you reveal, and then you choose your objective. So that way you have the ability of going, okay, now that I know I'm playing into, I don't know, Ghost Fleet, Now I know which objective I need because maybe I need to take the objective that allows me to have a single magic shot, or I've gone, we've chosen our lists and I don't have a Pathfinder or a good Pathfinder solution, or I need more Pathfinder, so I'm going to now choose the Pathfinder objective. The only issue that I have is, not all scenarios have objectives, which is on purpose and should be that way, but the benefits of the objectives really boils down to 3 benefits. Do I need Pathfinder? No. Question number 2, do I need magic? No. Default, I get the healing objective. That's literally your litmus test for objectives. Do I need Pathfinder? No. Do I need magic? No. Default healing objective.
I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing, though. I mean, it gives it to where, yeah, it makes it easier.
The Pathfinder one is always a situational one to me, because you have an objective that you have to be near to in order to get Pathfinder. Well, what if there's not a piece of terrain nearby that you need that Pathfinder for? What if the Pathfinder you need is on the other side of the map, in which case that objective provides no benefit to you?
I guess the good news about that is that you only have to be within 4. So technically you can be within, like if you're using a big model, you're then technically within like 5 to 6.
Yeah, 5.
Because you can tow it.
Just slightly out. But it still becomes a scenario of, is that within, sub 6 plus your movement and your charge range or whatever enough to gain benefit to that Pathfinder?
Well, it's good because you can almost, like, if you have Pathfinder and say there's something in the zone, then depending on what side you are, you're only an inch out from the zone. So regardless, as long as you're within that 4, and there's a piece of terrain there, because you'll see that, and especially with as much as there is, it can be kind of beneficial, especially when you can clear through, because that was one thing in SR17 that I was a little bit like, it kind of bothered me, was the fact that you had to basically decide what is going to be the one objective that's going to save me this whole event. And then we only saw 2 objectives, because it was like, there's no way you're ever going to know, hey, I might need this, or hey, I might need that. So you just have to go with the very generic. So at least with this, the way they did this, it's a lot.
Yeah, and I know a couple of people are frustrated with the fact that the magic objective only allows you to take a single shot with the magic ability. It doesn't allow you to basically give, like Behemoth 2 bombards. Behemoth only gets 1. But I understand the purpose behind that, is they didn't want to have a scenario where it was like, I'm going to put my Stormwall next to the objective. Cool. All of my Stormwall shots are now magical. F off.
Goodbye, Ghost Fleet.
Yeah. So I understand the purpose behind it. I just think that the Pathfinder one feels subpar to me, just because it has that situational limitation to it. I don't necessarily have a suggestion for it, and I didn't participate in the SR to necessarily give that feedback, but maybe that's something that we can tackle in 2018.
Well, I think that was the thing with during the SR17 CID, there was more than just the 3 objectives during that time. So the fact that they went from, I think it was probably 5 or 6.
They had all 6.
Yeah, so they went from 6 down to the 3 was kind of a huge change that we didn't see at the time. So I don't know if you could have accurately given good feedback on that.
But I definitely think that people, like anybody that's played in one of my tournaments, would definitely, maybe Kevin, that's where you're coming off, because you don't really play in my tournaments too much. But like having the ability to, Devin put down 9 pieces of terrain in the middle of his board, literally looks like a scene out of Predator. At least I can get Pathfinder, So I think
if you give me Pathfinder, the utopian scenario is there's an objective with a wall sitting right next to it. But if the scenario is you put my objective and the only real terrain feature that's within range of me using it is a hill, then it's not a functional objective.
Yeah, I guess it just depends on what you're using. Because, I mean, if you're using, say, like a heavy, like if I was running like a Mauler and I needed, with the limited speed, or like Scorn, if you don't have a way to give them Pathfinder at that point, or you need to give Pathfinder to something else, I mean, it's definitely, it can help you get through, and I think that's cool because you get to choose it after you see the terrain, after you see what you're going into.
But even in that scenario, wouldn't you have put Pathfinder, if that was a concern of yours, wouldn't you have put Pathfinder ability in your list anyways?
Sometimes you may not need, I mean, like, let's be honest, like right now, like in a lot of my lists, I want to put the Axer in, but there's so much other stuff, especially with the way the troll points are right now, that I can't fit the Axer in. Like, even though he's fantastically priced, I just can't fit him in. And then not a lot of casters in trolls allow Pathfinder. They provide Pathfinder. Now, when the Fellcaller first came out in Mark III, and he could give Pathfinder to anybody, I thought like the Privateer Press gods had shined upon us, but they took that away, and it was a sad day. But this way, the way I look at it is that if I'm planning into a list, there's some things I might have to give up. Like, yeah, this sucks. I'm going to have to be a little bit slower, but I physically just don't have the points to put that Pathfinder in there because I don't have anything that can do it other than, select casters and a beast, And so units are safe because a lot of my units, I can give them Pathfinder through the Fellcaller, or like with Femblades, which are my all-time favorite, I can just pop their mini feat and get Pathfinder through that. But when it comes to my beasts, other than the Earthborn, which, you don't have that option other than, Rush, which, so having that ability, especially as being a troll player right now, for me, it goes, if I look at the board and I need to move quickly, like one of my lists that I'm playing is Do Me 3, and it allows me to charge, gives me 3 inches, but that 3 inches is only going to do 3 speed is only going to do so much if I can't get through the forest. So, if I have someone that's going to be hiding on the other side of it, depending on how the terrain is placed, then I would possibly choose that. So, I mean, I guess I don't see myself using it for a unit really ever as a troll player. But for some of my beasts who are already slow, and it's really hard for us to get them to go through things like that, I think it could be really beneficial that way. So, I mean, it doesn't apply to every army.
No, I definitely agree. Situational. I guess we can agree that it's all situational. So one of the other scenarios that kind of fits that same breakdown structure of being very central base is the pit 2, I should say, which is the inverse. It's got one circle and then one circle in the center and then 2 square objectives, or 2 square zones on the outside. However, this one does have the add benefit of having objectives to it, and those objectives are on the player's right zone on the back end. So this one's slightly better because it gives another scoring potential with the objective, but I still feel it can become very grindy. The only difference with this one is that because the squares are on the outside, your battle groups tend to play more of an outside scenario. So it favors jacks that might have range potential to them, where they could potentially sit, mid to back end of the rectangular zone, and then just kind of plink away and shoot anything that comes within the zone and continue scoring on. So I think this one has a slightly better advantage to it, but it has grind potential to it. And then, of course, the objective gives you another scenario where you could theoretically, if you manage to kill the objective and clear out the circular zone and the square zone, that you can gain 3. And once I feel like 3 is the critical mass, because you have to win by 5. The second you can score 3 on your opponent, you can quickly, tip the balance where they immediately have to go into this, oh crap, I could lose next turn scenario.
And just looking over the stuff in general, I feel like, to me at least, the lists that seem to be the most alive are the ones that have flags in it. Just doing like Spread the Net alone, like it had, both of your zone markers and with the flags, I just feel like you could jump up really quick. Not to say that the one with the objectives aren't as alive, but I just feel like with the objectives, you do kind of have to destroy them in order to get the points for them. If they're your opponents. So I do see that as kind of being, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things about Spread the Net that I like is Spread the Net takes that concept of everything becomes, very centralized to the center of the board. You still have the circle in the center of the board, but those what used to be rectangles on the center of the board are now shifted closer to your deployment zone, and the flag is also not on the center of the board. It's slightly closer to your deployment zone than the center of the board. So it almost becomes a scenario of the games of Spread the Net become very fast-paced scoring scenarios. If you can get an early advance, if you can, go first and you have a fast army that can shut them out of the circular zone, and you get a simple solo, to sit on the flag, and then your caster sits on the square zone, and then you get bodies to sit in the center, you can score 3 at anywhere near the bottom of 2 to the top of 3, depending on if you need to clear out what your opponent has done in return. I think Haley 2 loves spread the net. Like I think this is a scenario where Haley 2 is like, yes, I'm already on the winning scale.
Yeah, I think Haley 2 is going to like it a lot. Yeah.
Something you might want to do for our listeners is explain what you mean by alive.
Alive is a scenario where you can score points very quickly from a scenario standpoint without necessarily having to overcommit to it. In any scenario within the pack-in, you can quickly score 2 to 3 points very quickly, but it usually comes at a cost of risking a huge portion of your army to do it. So what ends up happening is that you'll be like, all right, I'm gonna score in, I'm gonna score 3, and then your opponent's like, cool, you have 3, but in my turn, I obliterate 50% of your army, and now your score potential has gone out the window. That alive state that I just described isn't necessarily alive in the sense of being safe and being able to contribute to a winning game. A live scenario to me is a scenario where I can score anywhere from 2 to 3 points without necessarily committing a huge portion of my army so that I can continue to play the game. And I think that's why a lot of people use live scenarios, that it has the ability of quick point scoring. You get lots of where I score 2, and then it's Tony's turn. Tony scores 2 in turn because he shoves me out. I score 3 because I shut him out of a zone and a flag. And it's this constant scoring of CPs, whereas Breakdown, the barbell one we described earlier, there's almost nothing happening. So as a prime example, one of the games that Gaston and Tony played, there wasn't a single control point scored because you could so easily contest them without any major contribution of your army to the table.
Hey, whoa. We scored controls. It was just going, then it was just deadpan as soon as I scored 1.
I was going to say, you scored 1 and then nothing happened the rest of the game.
Yeah, and then there's no crazy escalation between the two.
Who won that? Who won that game?
So we can't bring it up because
because you recorded it.
Because it was an official record, yeah. So I played 3 games about 2 weeks ago. The first one was against Ghost Fleet, and that was not recorded.
4 games.
No, I only played 3. I played 1 the night before against John Leclerc.
Oh, I thought you got 3 in the day.
No, we only did 2. Because both games went a little longer than expected. But no, I won't go over what happened, but I was overall, it was good to get the rust off the night before when I was getting my teeth kicked in by Ghost Fleet. So one thing I do want to bring up to you guys is my question is about going first or second. So traditionally, I believe it was always really, really good to go first. As if you wanted to go first.
As a troll player, I wanted to go second.
Really? Okay, and that's my question now. With 2017, what do you guys think is more beneficial? Do you want to go second so you can get a little further up the board? You can also start getting scenario points sooner, and you can kind of dictate that end of that game, or do you want to be the first one on the board?
I think it depends on your theme.
No, I don't.
I think so many themes give you extra board control, extra space up the board, that depending, one of the ones I'm playing gives me I think 2 inches up. So, the reason why I liked playing second is I got that extra 3 inches. And in trolls, being as slow as they are and having plenty of ways to increase my speed, going second, I could potentially get the alpha strike with something, depending on how far they decided to go.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I think that it's a scenario of what is your list trying to do. Anybody who's running a control or an attrition-based army in any way wants to go second. There's a couple of things that tail into this. One is when you go second, you're setting tempo. You get the first opportunity to score. If you're playing an attrition-based or a long, grindy style game, if you get to round 7, you also get the last opportunity to score. So not only do you get to start setting the tempo by scoring first, but you also get the last opportunity to score because it's the end of 7. Whereas in prior editions, there was no end of 7. It could just continually keep grinding on and on and on. There's no end state. You can't affirm, I will be the last person to score. Now that we have this set 7, you can say, if I've gone second, I know that if we get to turn 7, I will have the last score. There's no way for my opponent to counter score me. And if I can set myself up to set the tempo with me at the lead and confirm that at the end I can score higher than them, or at least score enough points, because once you get, even if you don't get the 5 to win, you can set the tempo so that you at least have more CPs than they do. And that's one of the tiebreakers that puts you into the win category. So the mere fact of being able to set tempo and affirm that you're the last person to score really weighs heavily on the ability. And to, if that wasn't enough, the ability to choose table sides in a world where there's so much more terrain, I mean, that's really, like, you have to have a really good reason for wanting to go first. Now, wanting to go first might be a scenario of, I've created my list with a sole purpose of glass cannon assassination. I'm going to go first, I'm going to run across the table, and then on turn 2, I'm going to do whatever my list does that's amazing that causes me to deliver an assassination on the top of 2 or top of 3. Any other scenario, I feel like going second is your only decent default choice.
All right, man. I like that. That was pretty good. What else do you want to talk about with SR17?
So something fun I think we should definitely do, since I have you guys on the phone and this won't release until afterwards. We should pick, I'm going to leave it up to you guys since I am participating in that event tomorrow. I want you two to pick the 3 scenarios that we're going to do tomorrow in the Store Wars.
Cast the net.
Spread the net?
Spread the net, sorry. Spread the net is definitely one.
I'm assuming the rumbles are out.
Yes, it's just the main 6.
I would go with, even though I kind of gave it a bit of a besmirch from a tournament standpoint, I would go with scenario 1, which is pit 2. Which gives you circle, zone, center, rectangle, rectangle, objective, and then your next round goes to spread the net, and all you have to do is shift the rectangles closer to the other person's right side, take the objectives out, and drop in a flag.
Whoa. All scenarios have kill box?
Every single scenario has kill box.
Fuck yeah, because one of the things I did in SR17 and 16 is that I like to always, especially in a 3-round event, I like to play one that had objectives, one that had 2 zones, and then I always ended it on a kill box. Always. And I was like looking here going like, which one has kill box? You know, so I can make sure that's the last one. But all of them do.
All of them have kill box.
So the other advantage to doing the pit 2 and then spread the net is you're providing your players with both rectangle and square zones. So it's not a scenario of, oops, there is, like Outlast. Outlast is a prime example of this. Outlast has circle zones, objectives, and it's just circle zones and flags. So if you have units, they do dick all, or they are the only potential for scoring. So if you've taken something like, I don't know, Storm Division that has solos and jacks, your solos are doing your only scoring scenario because your jacks
Storm Divisions have units as well. You're thinking of heavy metal, yeah.
Or I'm sorry, heavy metal.
Yeah, but if you're running Paradunia, like you're only running beasts in general. So
if you're only running beasts in general, if you're running a heavy jack / beast load, having a circle is not fun.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the things, I kind of alluded to it before, but I kind of feel strongly about it, is that so in the past, tournament play has always been kind of a scenario of, I need to have lists that answer questions, or I need to have lists that ask questions of my opponent's lists. Can I deal with dude spam? Can I deal with jack spam? Can I deal with, whatever the case might be, mad incorporeal spam or whatever the case might be? I think 2017 has also thrown on the fact of now the scenarios are even asking you questions. Do you have a solo to control flags? Do you have units to control boxes and to control circles? And then as my opponent, when I'm reviewing your list, and we'll take Outlast as the example. If I look at your list and you're playing Paradunia and you've got one solo available to you. Guess who's just got a target on his head? Because if I take out that solo and you have no units, I've taken your scoring completely off the table, and now I get to sit back and go, you can have the zones, I don't fucking care. Bring your caster forward, I'm now going to kill your caster.
Right, yeah.
Right.
The best you can do is you can contest, and that's about it.
In which case, but if I've removed your ability to score, then all I have to do is score a single point and then wait for your caster, or 2 or 3 or whatever, or set myself up in a way where I'm going to accrue points and your caster is going to have to do something about it and kill your caster. Like, you can't score, you can't win by scoring, which is going to be one of your first tiebreakers. So as soon as I get one control point, I'm winning the game, and you have to do something about it. It's really comes to a situation where you have to look at the packet when you're building your list and go, can I fucking answer some of these? Because if I can't, I don't want to be in a situation where I'm 3-0 and I go to the 4th table and fuck, I can't control score points. I've just now lost the tournament.
Right.
So what would you say is the third one?
You trying to be nice to your opponent, your players, or mean?
It doesn't fucking matter. Honestly, it's a tournament.
It doesn't fucking matter.
Because trust me, the terrain is going to be mean enough.
If you want to be super dickish, I would probably say Outlast. I love Outlast as a scenario, but I think it's a hard question to ask your opponents. I would almost say Recon. Recon is very similar to Outlast. It replaces the circles with squares, which are the same squares that you would have in the prior scenarios that you had. But it also throws in objectives, so at least your opponent has an objective to try and kill. Also, I want to caveat the conversation with before, because I know somebody will probably put me on blast in the comments. Yes, I recognize that casters can score anything, flag zones, circles, whatever. That comes at risk of getting your caster killed, so be very careful when you do that.
Right, which is why you said, yeah, I'm going to sit back and relax and wait until you put your caster out there, because your caster needs to be out there to score.
So why not breakdown then? Because if we have spread the net and the pit, which we said we're going to do the pit 2 first, then we're going to do spread the net second. Mm-hmm. So then
breakdown is a grind attrition, and if you're running a 3-round tournament, do you really want your last tournament, when people are tired and just want to go home when they're done playing, to be a scenario where they're going to have to play all 7 rounds?
It's fine. It's only a 3-round tournament. They can deal.
Again, how mean do you want to be to your opponents?
If it goes anything like the last 3 we've had, the pair down lost, so it was a 2-round.
Really?
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
It is unfortunate.
I don't think that you want, as a tournament organizer, I don't think I would ever make the last round, the last scenario, be a scenario that I believe to be very grindy and attrition-y.
Yeah, I feel like the flip side, you're going to have spread the net. That one I think will be very fast.
How about we could do the pit 2, then we bounce over to breakdown, then we bounce back to spread the net.
I feel like spread the net is generally a quick game, unless you have a lot of shit on the table.
It can be. I think if you're going to do that, you start with breakdown. Make everybody attrition. If you're going to do the grindy one, do it first. Get out of the way.
Okay, that's what we'll do.
Cool. All right, guys. I think that's pretty good for an episode. Wait.
We got a quick update, though.
Yeah.
The blockhouse is not hollow.
It is not hollow. Okay.
Wow, that's okay.
Does it come with trenches?
I did not ask that, but I can tell you that the blockhouse is not hollow.
Is it the spun styrene or is it the resin?
And ask that question. You said ask if it's hollow. It's not hollow.
I feel like it's got to be the hard resin then, right? Because
it probably would be, because I would imagine they're not going to put a thick spun styrene objective or building on the table.
Yeah.
Which means it'll have about as much weight as many of the battle engines out there.
Okay. Cool. All right, guys. Any last words before we wrap this up?
No. I thank you guys for helping me choose that. Now when I get to the event tomorrow, they could be like, "You planned it." And I'll be like, no, listen Tuesday, and you will see how the objectives...
What was the logic?
There was no logic. I was working with Tony.
That is true. I am chaos incarnate sometimes.
No, I'm just going to throw out my standard shut up and play.
Yeah, dude, and I would definitely say that, man, after playing those last 2 weekends ago now, I feel it's been, or will be 2 weekends by the time this comes out. Oh my God, dude.
Changes your perspective, doesn't it?
I am so excited. Like,
How about Jason Watts? Tell me your feelings on that.
I'm really excited. I saw his list. Really surprised with his list. I love that he's doing Axis Lacan. Different list than I thought he would have played, but I think they're interesting. I think it really shows kind of what we're looking at for this 2017, this upcoming meta. But it's just between that, like, it got us me more excited about looking at Siege 2, like, just in general. Like, I am, after playing 3 games now, I am just so freaking pumped for the future. And honestly, I could care less at this point what people say on the internet about Privateer Press or Warmachine and Hordes. I think it's still hella fun, and I had a fucking blast playing.
Also, ladies and gentlemen, do not forget that the end of this month, August, so Labor Day weekend, is the Nova Open hosted in Arlington, Virginia. Tickets are still available. And as we've said, I think we said on the last one, Privateer Press is going to be there demoing Company of Iron. So that's a really exciting time, and Nova has a lot of other games to offer, but I can definitely assure you that the Privateer Press side of things is definitely going to be banging, because we have more people signed up this year pre-registered than we have in any other year we've done it. So, and we have some pretty cool people coming, including Trevi the Great. We have Tim Banky. And just a ton of other people. So if that's something you're interested, grab your tickets while you can.
Shameless plug.
Yeah. All right, guys. With that being said, I want to thank everyone for listening to another episode of Turn Extension.
Have a good night.
Yeah, boy!